Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Let's continue. We spent about half of the last episode in a flashback playing as little girl Lara Croft, which it's an interesting idea, but if anything it just kind of teases how her father seemed to be on way more adventures than this rebooted Lara Croft is ever going to have a chance of experiencing, and I'm sadly just going to be left with the 3 rebooted stories that we had, and that's about it. Interesting. Still really don't get the idea, the reason why I can just go into this detective mode, but I can also waste resources to go into this mode and then see the exact same thing. If anything, I'm seeing less items in this mode.
I don't have enough space for that.
And we're just completely full on inventory now. And so apparently I can only have 24 of the perception mode resources anyways. So eventually that's probably going to be the thing that we will end up just collecting a bunch of and then using. We'll just use the perception mode resources because I can't hold any more resources. Perhaps this is in fact mostly a case of me
All full up. Can't carry any more.
well, yeah, I'm totally full of resources now. This might be a case where the outfit I'm wearing right now is giving me so much extra items as far as resources that I've just broken the game, and I only have this outfit because of DLC. It definitely all feels very pay to win. I guess we're supposed to go this way to move the story forward, and I'm really shocked at just how far we've made as far as progress in this story according to the save files. Maybe this is the point where we'll finally get rid of Jonah, which he's really just been a character to talk to, which that lines more in line with like a movie. And that's one thing certainly about like Indiana Jones movies, is that if you broke down the points where conversations were happening versus points where actions were happening, wow, so 2-person move then just becomes a 1-person move. The amount of conversations that happen are a lot more as far as just how much time is spent on that in Indiana Jones movies than you would think.
I don't have enough space for that.
What we're really going to run into, I guess, as a problem is that we're going to need to increase our inventory ability. Although I don't know if we really need to increase the inventory ability, or if 24 is just enough. I'd say in most video games, though, you could have less conversation.
This camera belongs to the X700 line. Sam had one of those. I was so jealous. It's just the thing you'd want for an expedition to find a lost monument or civilization. This is proof that there were people coming here as recently as the 1980s. Even when modernity scoffs at them, some legends still manage to inspire people.
So, yeah. Remember, they've said Lara Croft is
Almost looks
in
as
her
though it
like
was hit by a
20s.
projectile of some type.
So if this is taking place anywhere around 2019, 2020, she would definitely not have been alive in the 1980s. Alright, so this, I think, has looped us back into this area, which is weird that we could transfer that way. It almost feels like this tree may have fallen down, or we could have just potentially jumped. Well, while we're here, we can see if we can find the animal, the rare animal, since we've increased that, and see if we can possibly hunt that. We can see if we can find the collecting flowers from the top of the canopy, see if we can find feathers, see if we can get resources. Yeah. I'm not sure that these resources, though, are actually showing the right every animal. I'm not sure I'm quite at the point where two shots to kill those, one shot to kill a bird. It does still seem like your instincts highlight more stuff. Ruffled feathers hit for nests. See, when we kill that, we get some feathers from the birds, and we get some hides and what looks like eggs from the capybara looking creatures.
I don't have enough space for that.
Okay. At the very least, we can do these tombs. If I can get the right direction. Yeah, it says the tomb is directly this way.
All full up. Can't carry any more.
It's this way, but it's on the other side of this wall. Which in a video game, this is where you would like to be able to just jump over the wall and climb. But no such luck. It does feel like a lot of these resources are just respawning, and eventually it does seem like we are going to just have max resources on everything if it's all capped at 24. Maybe we'll get a bigger amount of a backpack.
All full up. Can't carry any more.
The game is trying to help me here by showing me when I'm full. If I can pay attention to that. Some of these resources we're collecting, we've done less with. Missed twice. So we have like 9 arrows here, so it would make a lot of sense to craft another 4, maybe even another 8. And then the game just didn't really want to let me walk forward there. We're back into some fairly high amounts of darkness.
Careful. Careful.
Without the flashlight activating. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to turn off all the lights in my room just to be able to even see this. For the most part, when I have a Windows desktop open on my monitor, it looks perfectly fine, nice and bright. But when you get into some games like this, it's just not really cutting it. But then plenty of other games I play visually are nice and bright. So it opens the door on the left, and then we'll probably coming back on the door on the right. Back into some mud. We'll turn on our perception, which lets us see through
Wonder
walls.
where this will lead.
Which I guess maybe the perception can see through walls where the instinct click doesn't. I kind of just wonder if maybe there's a higher level of difficulty, and in that higher level of difficulty, that is where the idea of engaging with the perception herbs makes sense. So is this some kind of toxic
What do we have here?
water? I missed some things, so I'll have to go around twice. We found an actual tomb in Tomb Raider. We now have feathered boots said to be something, so we have a new outfit that we'll have to get back to the... I guess we'll have to get back to the campfire before we can
There must be a way out
do
of
anything with that. And so we found some gold in an ore. There have been some complaints of games highlighting where you're supposed to go.
Be the way up.
In this case, I think even at the highest setting of the white paint, it's actually more helpful to have it on. But I definitely have seen some games where it's gotten really crazy and you have a bright glowing yellow climbing indicator, breadcrumbing trail telling you where to go for every single climbable aspect. Where this is more of a game that's more a case where you're minimalistically puppeting Lara Croft, or your main character here, in the sense that I push her forward, but I'm not really manually controlling whether her arms swing left and right or what she grabs on when she's climbing upward. I'll just press forward on the controller and it will climb up, which for video games that makes a lot of sense. You don't want a one-to-one direct connection. If you're going to do something like that, it might as well be in VR. Alright. We just unlocked something, but I'm not sure what it was. I didn't hit the button fast enough. Something that said this was a memorial. And we're just all over the place as far as different collectibles.
This enigmatic.
We don't need to look at that one. But to collapse something, you have to click on the other thing.
This depicts the Incan god Kon. He was the son of Inti, the sun god, and Pachamama, the moon goddess. Kon was in charge of the wind and the rain, although in some legends he was only in charge of the weather. This isn't the one we just got.
We've already heard that one before. We're looking for something that would be Quechua. And I'm not seeing anything labeled Quechua. Alright, here it is.
May Ergu be the one to chart the path from this life to the next, so that we may all travel safely.
So just a small memorial, and if anything, it's just highlighting that for a weird reason, there's actually more down here. And this should be either paged better, or it should just take up a full screen. Their menu isn't great, and I feel like they've struggled with menus throughout this entire rebooted series. At some level, the fact that ray tracing is such a big deal, or was promoted so much around this game originally, highlights a greater willingness to experiment than they probably should have had for the second and third game.
30th of May.
Almost certainly should have locked down the features and the way the menus would have looked, and it should have stayed that way for the trilogy. And then experimentation should have been extremely minimal and probably added in a rebooted trilogy continuation.
When Father notices, he slows, turning around to give us both an encouraging smile. His overly eager step betrays his calm demeanor as he rushes past us at the sight of every nearing turn, ridge, or embankment.
Obviously, I'm not paying a lot of attention to these journals. Yeah. I feel like the menus themselves could have definitely been the same, and the graphics probably ideally should have been just about the same.
Oh, shit!
For the entirety of the trilogy. Although we are getting to a point where trilogies take potentially 12 years to be made, and video game trilogies have stopped working as a concept anyways. We're now much closer to the idea of a single game and its sequel, and then you get a whole new series of types of games after that, like 2 more games in a game and sequel concept. Or you get annualized franchises that are just going to be every year. And Lara Croft in particular probably would have done better as rebooted annualized sequels. They could have made the games a little bit shorter and a little bit less important and impactful, but they could have put one out every year. Maybe that really wouldn't have sold any better. And I don't think Square Enix is willing to do any of that. Although Square Enix does, even when this game was being made, have that problem where they want they would have ideally wanted a new Lara Croft game as often as they made a new Final Fantasy game or spin-off of Final Fantasy, which is about every year.
This seems to describe a hidden chamber nearby.
Am I supposed to try and find a hidden chamber? Am I supposed to be seeing a hidden chamber behind the window? I don't know what I can really do other than just punch things. Punch or shoot things. I could squeeze in here, I guess. Just got another achievement. Untold Riches. And so that's an archivist map. Guess you can zoom in, but I don't know if the zooming in part helps you too much. I guess it tells me there's a document and a treasure chest over here, and then there's a relic over here, and there's still this tomb over here which we've failed to deal with. It looks to me like I may have already hunted this animal. 56% completed as far as the Peruvian jungle. Let's see. Show all, hide all, show all, hide all. It doesn't seem like that's a very useful system. Seems like you could hide individual things, which might be helpful. But it still doesn't really tell me whether I've hunted that animal or not. Let's see. Or if I've hunted that animal. Interesting. This is also highlighting that there's more stuff over here that I've just completely missed. And I doubt we are going to unlock any more transitional things. So it would probably be beneficial just to run and capture all that stuff now. Like, collect all that items. This is probably not loading anything in that transition, and that's just reusing transitions. The game does deserve, I guess, applause for not having a lot of load sequences that you can recognize. There's some of that certainly happening. But what's going on here? I think the game just went full circle there. It did. Okay. So we're done. This is a load sequence. Still hating the idea that the flashlight's not turning on. I really would prefer there to be a button to toggle that at any point. Give more control to this gameplay. This is a fairly controlling game when you get to the narrative parts. It is. Oh, you have to swim to this section. I now see. Okay. So we need to find some deep water we can swim in. Nope, you don't swim to that section. Still have yet to get the ability to get poison from the frogs. Poison arrows might start to play a bigger role in fighting enemies, but noticeably this whole Peruvian jungle has worked very nicely to not have us actually fight humans or fight Trinity. I imagine if it's like the previous game, the first act will try to be mostly animals and no Trinity enemies, and then the second and third act is probably going to be more humans. That was yet another fall, I think, where it was scripted, which I don't know if I would fully suggest putting like black bars cinematically at the top and bottom whenever something cinematic happens, but it might be a little less unnerving to do it that way. Otherwise, you're creating a situation where you are basically just jump scaring the player, forcing them to think that they're about to die and lose. And I could see there being a percentage of players that would just pause the game and load a save, unwilling to accept a loss.
This might represent one of the Lords of Shabalba.
Fat to upgrade your weapons at base camp. So we have now a new resource, and I guess fat is what we've been getting from hunting animals too. Clearly when you get into these tomb sections, that's when they have fairly haphazardly just programmed
to lift the statue somehow.
They've just programmed her to say very default responses and hints over and over again.
I don't have enough space for that.
Let's see. We have now unlocked fast travel with really no reason why now would be the time to unlock fast travel. I have like 4 upgrades. I can't do anything with the knife or anything like this. I can craft these. Gain additional plant and mineral crafting resources from each source versus what do I have equipped now? We have the remnant jacket. No, that's not what we're wearing. Are we wearing survivor, adventurer? Yeah, we're gonna have a real hard time staying on the outfits that we already have equipped because there's just no indicator in the menu. It really feels like it's just a messy system. The outfits aren't really moving around, but they're not also in a alphabetical order or any kind of logical order. And if you were just playing the game without the deluxe edition, I assume you would just have the default outfits that would be giving you nothing. Okay. I'm wearing, I believe, the Explorer outfit, yes, which would give you additional plant and mineral crafting resources from each source and bonus from hunting XP from hunting animals, whereas this would only give you a little bit there. I could craft this. I don't see a real reason not to craft it, so let's craft it just to own it. But then that puts you back to your default ugly looking texture of her whenever you change it, and it still makes a lot more sense to wear the outfit that is DLC, pay to win. We don't have any skill points, but it does seem like you really only need to keep maybe 1 or 2 skill points at any point. You would be better just using what you find in most cases. We'll craft some more arrows so you can pick this hardwood up. I think part of the problem, I've taken my hand off the controller by the way, and this is just a cutscene, it seems like. I think part of the problem with Lara Croft games is as you push the graphics to more and more realism and try to make it as pretty as possible, and that really seems like that's their only obsession, around this remake series. You are just investing more and more resources for a sequence like this that visually is very pretty, but most people are just going to run right past it. And you see it for a second. So if somebody spent a month animating that one section, then you have to get repetitive, which the game doesn't seem like it wants to be repetitive, and reuse the same visual art assets and design. Crossing that wooden bridge, compare that to the end of Temple of Doom, you spend at least 6 or 7 minutes at the crossing the bridge at the end of Temple of Doom, or nearly crossing the bridge at the end of Temple of Doom. And they make a much better use of that set in that scene. Well, I thought I was going to find something extra and then end up going through here, and that the extra was over here. But I guess the move is to go up here. There's kind of a lack of logic of the pathfinding. There's no real logic as far as the beacons explaining where you're supposed to go anyway, so you might as well just expand that to a full-on glowing trail of energy that would fly in a direction and show you which way to go. Since I've already introduced the idea of magic in this game, her gaining a magical power wouldn't be that crazy.
Those proven innocent may leave, but the guilty are killed and thrown to Shabalba. Amazing. Is this a Pocketot court?
I'm supposed to apparently know what that means, what kind of court that means. If anything, I assume
Need to raise that ladder somehow.
that this is some kind of trial by combat concept, which the concept of trial by combat assumes the god would, whatever god you believe in, would let you survive a battle, and the guilty would die in a battle.
Need to raise that ladder somehow. I think this might be the exit.
Seems like it's really easy to leave some of these areas prematurely.
Need to raise that ladder somehow.
Not supposed to be shooting these, am I?
Need to raise that ladder somehow.
Alright, let's look at the options as far as gameplay. Puzzle difficulty. Lore gives normal hints next to the action to perform. Interactable objects are highlighted in Survival Instinct's normal window of opportunity for time mechanics. Hard, no hints given by Laura, no Survival Instincts. Shorter withdrawal window for opportunity for time mechanics. You're really combining about 3 different things under that when it really doesn't feel like those 3 different things are directly connected. I want to just turn off lore giving hints, but I like the survival instincts. I could see an argument to getting rid of it, but even if you get rid of it, then you're just using the herbs, and none of that has anything to do with lowering the window of opportunity for timed mechanics. Let's see, we could also maybe turn off glow or beacons, but I don't think that's going to change anything. Right, well, the only thing we can do here is this to start with. But I think that's just going to stay as long as I'm
Must be
hanging
a way
on
to
it.
lift this ladder.
Now we're in a different area and getting a different prompt.
All full up. Can't carry anymore. Need to find a way to lift the ladder.
This whole back section seems to be blocked. So if this one was pushed down this way, I think that's the wrong direction. I think we want to actually pull it. I'm kind of assuming once it gets to the right spot, the sides here would open up and it would grab it. Alright, so then how do we lift this? You don't lift it, from the looks of it. So this is a puzzle. And I may have messed up the puzzle somewhat here.
I'll need to deal with the carts now.
You need to lift this ladder. Get out of the way.
Need to lock the left side counterweight in position.
Left side counterweight in position.
I'll need to deal with the carts now.
It seems really just wherever you're standing depends on what hint you get.
I'll need to deal with the carts now.
And so there's a real chance that you just are getting the wrong hints.
23rd of May. Over a month has passed since our expedition departed from Quyaba. We have consumed our provisions methodically thus far, and continue to be in high spirits. Father's age shows when we're on foot. A few times now I have caught Raleigh looking over his shoulder and back at us to make sure we're still keeping up. Father always returns a look with a smile and saying he'll soon be the one in the lead.
Either the story is really not going to matter at all, or we're going to get a big twist where Jack turns out to be Lara Croft in the past, or if we actually go down that route, or Jack might even be Dr. Dominguez. Okay. So we have a barrier here stopping me. There's something stopping me. I'm going all the way over here. Maybe I just needed to move it a little bit further. Just won't go any further. we could shoot this and try and yank it, but I think what we're supposed to be doing is probably this. Alright, let's experiment with that. Pull this back.
Shit, the rope snapped.
Okay. So maybe you're supposed to go the other direction with it. That might make some sense. I feel like you might have a case here where the game is a little too zoomed in on the camera for this section. It would be kind of helpful to have the camera a little bit more visible and easy to see. Okay. I did it, but I think I did it wrong. I think the move is probably, you have to push, I guess you have to pull it back, and then push this forward. Then pull this one back. Camera particularly low in that section. I think this definitely boils down to a section like this needed fixed camera angles. Doesn't matter how pretty the section might look if most players are just getting a small angle of it.
Oh, that's a bit of progress.
Okay. Attach that one.
Should be able to raise the ladder completely.
Use this to jump back up over here. Scamper back over here. And I guess that is the exit.
Should be able to raise the ladder completely.
I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. I like the music here. I like the calming idea. I like the idea of spending.
This ladder isn't as rotten as it looks.
Spending a little bit of time solving a puzzle. That definitely was noticeably missing in the first Tomb Raider game. But there is definitely a danger where some people would have spent too much time in a sequence like this. Or people would have just potentially given up in total or never even engaged with the tombs. You definitely are ruining the experience if you don't engage with the tombs. To the point where they should force the player to do the tombs. At least one to start with. I question here if all of these tombs may end up just giving us a small amount of craftable clothing There is a game that's a mobile phone game that they're making a new version of for consoles that's all about clothing and dressing up. So the idea of a dress-up game isn't insane. It's just a little insane for a character like Lara Croft, who in the two previous games really didn't care about outfits or anything like that. I forget the name of the game, and it's still in development, I suppose, at the moment. But honestly, there's probably only enough room at most for one dress-up game targeting little girls, basically, and Lara Croft is not going to be that. You could maybe have made a spin-off game where Lara Croft was dressing up, but that doesn't really make the most sense. If anything, I think that highlights part of the different mentality that Japanese companies and Japanese men who run Japanese companies think. We've seen that same issue certainly with like Nintendo, the way they thought Samus Aran from Metroid in Metroid Other M as a subservient, very feminine lady was just definitely not anywhere in line with the second party developer that was making Metroid M, or in line with any of the Western players of Samus games, Metroid games that are way more popular in the West than they are in Japan. Princess Peach in the most recent Super Mario Bros. Movie turned into a girl boss. Very different, I'm sure, from the way Princess Peach has ever been depicted in any Super Mario Bros. Game, and just not really in line with the characters that they create or design. You do have a slight difference here in that Lara Croft is a Western character originally designed by a Westerner, so her being more of a girl boss is in that original character design by far. But obviously Square Enix won at some point by adding an outfit system. And that's the problem with publishers in general, is that whatever they demand for their funding, they get for the funding for the most part.
I have to find a way out.
So now health regenerates more quickly. Great. That'll be a nice quality of life improvement, but it's not going to really change the game. It definitely feels like all of these upgrades are just little quality of life improvements, but won't actively affect the outcome of your experience. It'll just make things less grindy and less annoying. But if you've identified elements that make your game grindy and annoying, like the health's not regenerating fast enough, you should just tweak your game so that the health is more balanced and the health regenerates faster. There are definitely scenarios, I guess, where Lara Croft could have been in a cocktail ballroom doing kind of a James Bond thing, rubbing elbows with the rich and powerful people to fund their expeditions, and that's where you might have a different costume. But to have this RPG-like armor concept in the third game does seem just late to the party and doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, I'm not seeing enough of the white paint that's supposed to be pointing me in the direction to go. And there I missed the jump. Fortunately, I didn't fall to my death. I guess we're supposed to just jump that way. See, I don't even know where I am. Guess I'm still not to the central area yet. And see, ideally, this is the scenes you'd want to see. while playing the game is no highlights, no glowing orange. But you can't throw caution to the wind and really play that way.
Can't carry any more.
Now, I instinctively pressed X there. I'm not sure you really needed to. It's still awkward climbing animation. Seems like they've added a stumble feature intentionally here. And we've seen them talk about a stumble feature, so I would fully believe that's exactly what they have done. I feel like in the second game, also, she had glowing glow sticks that you would break and hang on her instead of a flashlight. And I feel like that animation, while it got fairly repetitive, it would be somewhat helpful to have something like that going on here.
All full up. Can't carry any more.
Right. So there's a campfire we could fast travel to from here. We're looking for Orphadola nests. And we're looking for things directly behind us. Of course, she just turned around, too. I think until we're full on fat and leather, it does benefit you to hunt in these sections. Right, so there is something right where we are. It says. Right here. I'm not really seeing anything high up. I am seeing something down there. So, my assumption, are we close enough to the water for it to make sense that you would swim there? I don't think you're supposed to just come off the edge. Although it does seem like you almost could. Actually, it seems to me like there is intentional barriers to stop you from climbing, running off the edge. Okay. So I hope what I'm doing is right, and I'm not just ending up somewhere where I've already been. And the bigger surprise here would be if this was like a bear cave or something. That there was an animal that was going to kill you. Oh, we can't collect these. We need a lockpick. We don't have lockpicks.
My dear Nina, once again the attempt to write is fraught with difficulty. However, those flies and bees and bugs galore that I wrote of before, all of those pinhead-sized stinging horrors, would have been a welcome attrition now that I faced down tooth and claw. I fought bravely, but the confrontation did not go in my favor. I will spare you the details out of compassion and not egotism. My wounds have been packed with yarrow and are stable, but I can feel infection in the blood. If you are reading this, then you know I have not survived this place. I instructed Jack not to go on. We lost young Rimmel a few weeks ago. This place, Nina, is not meant for the likes of men, and I will not rob you of a son as I have a husband. I'm tired now. Jack is sleeping by the fire, and I am certain that when he awakes, I will have slipped into my own slumber. I love you, Nina. Good night, Percy.
It might be a case here that this family somewhat parallels the Richard Croft story, but doesn't seem like the outcome changes much. Alright, so if we don't have a lockpick, then we can't get to treasure chest, which doesn't really stop us from taking on this or this or this. But it does just tell us that there's not really a good reason to deal with any of that at the moment. So let's just go here and can we place cursor? Nope, we can't. Let's just go back here and move the story forward. We're gonna have to come back at a different time. We may straight up have to purchase lockpicks from merchants, which is going to be yet another system that is obviously in this game that doesn't seem like it should be in this game. This is a bad camera angle. Notice how when you jump to climb, it kind of shoves me upward in a very unnatural way.
Impossible. I can't carry anymore.
Want to see if this highlights. No, this doesn't, so we could probably run around and look for a couple more nests. It may not be that hard to find them. And this is just infinitely spawning stuff, but we could use it. So I'm not gonna not collect it. And this is infinitely spawning, but we can use it. So just keep our eyes upward. Did we collect all the challenges on the flowers? Collecting. Seems like we probably did that. There's a relic over here. Let's go out of our way and see if we can find that. Eventually, I imagine we will just have... I swear it's here. Maybe we need something to be able to reach that. Eventually, I imagine we will just have a better weapon in general. And so hunting at that level may not... Like hunting right now with a weaker weapon and bow may not be real worth it. Is there another way around? Yeah, I think we're going to end up with just some fire arrows or something, so I don't think we can collect that one either. Fine. This is kind of the problem with open world games too, is that if the game is really not willing to open up, which this game really isn't willing to open up that much, you're going to have collectibles on the map that you can't actually collect. The craze around open world games, I don't think really worked in the benefit of players in the long run. And that's what really sucks about game development and game developers, is that they often are just copying each other or following trends instead of perhaps learning lessons from player feedback and just improving the game. A lot of times it's publishers' fault, because the publishers are just demanding games be open worlds in the hope that they can justify maintaining or increasing the price on games and having an arbitrary high amount of game hours played around games. Like, the concept has been very hard to sell to developers and publishers that they can just make a good game that lasts 20-30 hours. They're increasingly trying to have 60 to 200 hour experiences, or mostly they've lately been crazed around the idea of games as a service, so that you could just play forever and they could continue to charge you microtransactions forever, with which the hope would be that somebody would play for years a game without the developer having to develop any real major amount of content around the game. Just adding small patches and small features here and there. This definitely is a game that would benefit from being more linear, because obviously they couldn't afford to make it as open world as it really would have needed to be. Like, if you wanted to sell me a hunting game, fine. Then give me a full open world game where I'm just hunting. That probably wouldn't be very appealing to a lot of players. But I would understand it better compared to the large amount of narrow. I wonder if I'm supposed to be shooting one of those birds. Probably wouldn't kill me to shoot them. When you look at the map, you have like one relatively small open world section. Then you have major narrow A to B path, a somewhat open world section, but really it is still an A to B path that just winds around. This is just an A to B path. This is just an A to B path. This seems like it would be more of an open world section, but it really isn't. Where ideally all of this would be open world. You could swim and jump and run from, say, a far corner here just directly in this direction at some point. Even at that, though, that's still easy enough to get lost. And so I'm somewhat struggling to figure out which direction is which. We're looking for the log that we came in on. I guess I found it. But we couldn't find the final nest, which I think will probably just unlock a new ability that would unlock everything on the map. That's somewhat believable. It might be a case that you were supposed to jump down from this spot to the relic, but we'll just deal with all of that when we start to think about fast traveling and collecting everything, which in part I'm not sure we really will even bother to go that far with this game. Jonah has gotten noticeably more quiet now, so I think
we'll find in Kuwakyaku?
we're probably
would be nice.
at the end.
At this point, I'd settle for no jaguars.
We've missed the document. I almost think this might be the end of these journals.
I awoke this morning at the sight of my father wringing his handkerchief tightly between his two hands. Wide-eyed and unblinking, he stared in Raleigh's direction. Raleigh had passed. Infection had set into his wounds days ago, and shortly after, fever took hold. Between fits of cold sweats, laboured groans of pain, and demented ramblings, Raleigh had somehow been able to insist on forging ahead. Father had tried to reason with him, telling him to turn back, to let us carry the torch, but Raleigh made it clear. Turning our backs on him would have been leaving him there to die. We forged ahead. We were as far away from civilization as we had ever been, and we foolishly continued to trudge forward. So long, old friend.
It almost feels like we're getting these stories in chronological order, but we aren't. And it also feels like there was a Rimmel character and a Raleigh character. Too many characters with the starting with the letter R.
I don't have enough.
And take note, this is pretty much just going to be, once we get there, this is the new content. We've spent an entire hour going back and redoing content and collecting things we'd missed. Well, the tombs we hadn't seen before, but we were backtracking, is what I mean. Yeah, so you want this like cinematic view as you walk here, but video game OCD collectathon players, which there is something feeding into that with all these resources, would instead hit the sense button. You can only slightly compromise by doing this, and that's worse in every way. It should be revealing at least something different or giving you extra resources. So basically the survival instinct is just a accessibility feature. It's become an accessibility feature. Here we have a door we can pry open. And now you have to remember I can just hold the X button down now, since I have that accessibility. I doubt this is people from that expedition in this cabin. Okay, so we've gotten an archivist map that, to me, seems like it's not added anything. Yeah, we didn't do the flower picker quest or the ruffled feathers quest, and both of them are on that same thing. So that's just bad. And apparently we've missed an entire mural here. And there's even more things here. And things here. Okay, so I guess I'm generally getting the idea that you want to find one or two archivist maps always before you even come back and try and collect things. Otherwise the game is gonna make you wander around for far too much.
Impossible.
And that
I can't carry anymore.
just doesn't really work as a game concept to have you wandering around
There's a road.
looking for
Let's
things
check it
that
out.
may or may not exist. So we finally may be fighting humans, Trinity, I would assume. Now the stealth kills will
Shit,
Come-
Trinity, get down.
come down to it.
Truck's stuck. See that? What are we doing about it?
Follow my lead.
How the hell am I supposed to know?
What are you doing?
Get back. Hide.
We're pulling a predator now for sure,
Guy, aren't you?
covering in mud.
Whoa, hold up.
Which if you're going to cover yourself in mud, do it to avoid the mosquitoes and malaria more than hide your attention.
Right there. Make sure nothing can get through. I want this whole area sealed off. Yes, sir. If there's anything here, we're gonna find it.
Okay, so Jonah, again, showing himself to be
Last time this thing was
perhaps
serviced.
more
This is rusty.
capable than he should be as a character.
Anything that moves.
The idea here feels like instant death if you fail. Not sure what I was really supposed to do though.
Someone should check back there.
Mud cover walled.
Put it right there. Make sure nothing can get through. I want this whole area sealed off. Yes, sir. If there's anything here, we're gonna find it.
I don't hate the idea of a Predator game.
Last time this thing was serviced. This is
If you were going to make a Predator game, it should just be encounter
anything that moves.
after
Anything
encounter.
that doesn't. They still didn't find that relic. I'd love to be the guy that does. Not me. Why not? Be a hero.
I'll be dead more likely. No thanks. I'll keep sitting here looking for hostiles.
Less talking, more looking, gentlemen. Get off your asses. Yes, sir.
And see what would be really annoying here, I guess, is if you ended up seeing a collectible that you wanted to grab.
Laura, we're clear.
It's quiet. What's your team doing?
I'll check.
We're not paying them to sightsee.
We'll have to go under.
Yeah.
We know there's a main temple. What we're looking for is any smaller ruins we might have missed
Wait.
before.
Okay.
It's really wedged in there.
I'm afraid if we move it, we'll lose it.
We're gonna have to reinforce the bridge.
It'll be tough to find something crazy.
Test the bridge like I told you.
Oh,
It's just
I'm
a
pretty
lot
sure
of
we did
people.
test the bridge first.
Fuck off. I'm not covering.
I don't know how you're getting out of this without being caught.
Let me think about that.
We can take them.
See, this is just a cutscene.
You go left. I'll take these guys.
What gun?
Hide.
Dave, Sammy. Guys, I told them to test the bridge first. Son of a... Dave! Dave! Sammy!
So I see the guy. What am I supposed to be doing though? Yeah, am I supposed to be stealthing that guy, or is he supposed to have gotten away? It's important to also point out here that each one of these characters I killed maybe has some more resources on them for me to collect. So, even if there aren't is salvage boxes for me to interact with. There's other things to salvage. Jonah seems like he's kind of disappeared. I'm just not really sure.
I don't have enough space for that.
Interesting, even the salvage boxes now are full. We're getting hopefully extra XP for stealth kills. That was the whole point of getting the points unlocked in the first place. And this is just cinematic cutscene. And so I assume this is where she starts to get a gun. And there's where Jonah saves us, and maybe Jonah gets a gun too.
Stop. Thanks. You okay?
Yeah. Take this.
So is the idea that we have been knocking out people, or have we been straight up killing them? I'd assume we were just straight up killing them.
I hope that's the last of them. That was close.
Yeah.
How'd they know to
Vicar
come
Mark
here?
II.
I don't know.
Not exactly the civilization I was hoping to run into.
We are just full on everything except for maybe bullets. Well, no, there's still a few resources that we either haven't unlocked at all, so we have none of that, or that are particularly rare.
My arm is so itchy.
That means it's healing.
I might have liked it better when it was injured.
Oh, I know. I'm just trying not to think about my back.
You know, my grandmother survived a tsunami in the 60s.
What happened?
She lost friends. Her family lost their business. But after that, she could feel things coming. Volcanic eruptions, storms, other things. What was your mother like? You don't talk about her as much.
She was creative, adventurous. I think she was probably the glue that kept us together. After her death, it was more lonely.
So, yeah, it seems like we're curving around to another
Ever think
area.
about going back to New Zealand?
Sometimes. Maybe not as much as if
Just a walk and talk section.
Yeah.
Both your homes are so far removed from...
Everything? Maybe that's why I can't stop traveling.
There is a problem here, obviously, in that you wouldn't need these long of walk and talk sections, at least from this point to this point, if you weren't hiding loads. And you wouldn't need to hide loads if you weren't trying to push the graphics to the highest possible quality you can get. Wow. There's... Well, we've been here. That must have been a tomb. I really do feel like, well, I like this graphics style. If you had just kept it a little bit more cartoony and a generation behind, you could have had a much better level design. Of course, the people in charge of animating how Lara Croft looks and how the textures and visuals look are really not the same people who are in charge of actual level design. And that comes down to just what the publisher wants and what the director wants. I guess we're jumping here. But yeah, I often feel like games waste their budgets on things that would look fancy in a 5-second trailer, more than having a final product that people really would love to play more of. Right, so we got 2 free arrows there, but we're pretty much full on most other things. Objects wrapped in white cloth or covered in oil can be ignited. Great. How am I supposed to ignite it? Let's see. Use the D-pad to select the bow. And then what was the rest of that tutorial? Standard mistake. Don't read all the instructions. Okay, I have 25 arrows. So there's gotta be some other part to this. And almost certainly it is over here. Crafting. I guess this tells you exactly what crafting things we are still missing. Feathers, hides, perception plants, black powder, gold ore, fat. Interesting, you can only hold a certain amount of gold ore, so you must be crafting with the gold ore and not just adding that to your currency. Fire arrows. Use the D-pad to select the bow, hold right bump to craft fire arrows. Requires a silent air, cloth, and fat. Okay.
That did it.
So right trigger is flammable. Hold it, press right button to ignite, and shoot. Interesting.
Come on, let's go.
4 fire arrows. 23 silent arrows. Start collecting resources again around here to make up for what we just lost. So I guess as we can continue to craft more things, as the game unlocks more things, we'll be able to use up the resources that we've maxed out.
Could be anything. A pair of monuments or mountains or streams.
I suppose we'll know it when we see it.
Yeah.
Again, the audio has glitched as it's loading in a new section on the audio thing. We had that at low dynamic range, and I haven't heard any difference there. So let's go back to high dynamic range on that. Switch back to it, and maybe I will recognize a difference there. I haven't recognized any real problem with the audio in the past hour or two that we've had it. No, it's been probably 4 or 5 hours that we've had it on low dynamic range. Technically, I guess it should be in middle, since I am wearing headphones. Seems like we may have finally found the city.
I see people down there.
Okay.
I'll let you do the talking.
This is where we could run into problems again, though. Where we start to see crashing to the desktop.
Hi.
Hopefully we don't have any problem like that.
There's a place nearby we can stay for the night.
How'd you get so deep into the jungle? You lose your tour group or something?
No.
So we've got a new lady,
There were some guys here before.
Sam
looking for
replacement.
artifacts. You with them?
Trinity.
Definitely not.
I need a break anyway. Come with me.
So lady with tattoo sleeve and mechanic.
I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but the
She's
only
obviously
DMV in
going to
town
be-
is my place.
Well, you can't be too careful. By the way,
She's obviously going to be our new pilot
Abby.
friend character.
Come in, have a seat. Carlos, 3.
I guess in this game she pronounced her name Lara, but I feel like in the previous section, in the
So,
previous games, it was more Laura.
What are you here for
That's
exactly?
the way people pronounced
well,
it.
we were following a riddle when our plane went down.
You mean it crashed?
Yeah.
And you just walked out of the crash?
Okay. let's pause for a second here, because I do feel like the audio is worse at that point. Let's go back to low dynamic range and see if that sounds any different at all during this cutscene.
Well, you know, it's cruising pretty low.
We are looking for Maya ruins.
Mayan. You know you're in Peru, right?
Yeah, long story.
Thanks. Well, you don't seem like
Interesting that the bottles have a different
Oh, she's the
color
archaeologist.
to them.
I'm just a cook.
Really?
Yeah,
Have you tried any of our local ceviche yet? It's a specialty.
not unless it grows in the jungle.
Oh, don't tell me you missed our famous fish trees.
Yeah, I think for my headphones this sounds better as far as the dynamic range.
Where did you take this?
Mexico. Why?
Oh, I've seen this symbol before.
Where?
There's some ruins nearby, and a small rock with something like this carved on it.
Do you mind if I take a look around?
Be my guest, but I guarantee they're not Mayan. My people were Inca and proud of it.
Why don't you rest for a while?
You sure?
So we finally just
Promise you a
leave.
day off.
This leaves
Well, I'm not gonna say no to
Jonah.
that.
Have fun.
You too.
I was kind of leaning more into the idea that she would be hitting on Lara Croft, but
Lara,
Lara Croft is the
Colleagues.
forever
She's brilliant.
loner.
so you're not.
Oh, no. Nothing like that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like she's more interested in Laura than him, but maybe I'm just assuming some things
All
there.
full up. Can't carry any more.
Not me. My ancestors.
Alright. I could probably go with the medium audio, but I think the low audio probably works for most people as far as the dynamic range. It's a crazy setting to have in general, because it really is just admitting that they couldn't balance the audio well for everybody. And generally speaking, you don't have... I've never seen this idea of having... I've never seen this concept of having different dynamic ranges instead of simply supporting something like Dolby DTX or Pro Logic 2, Dolby Atmos, things like that, where you send a digital signal to give more information to devices that can handle it. Yeah. Auto... I guess here, this might be a case where, I assume this is on stereo, is what it's on right now, but I kind of don't know. But yeah, you can see here, 5.1, 7.1, and spatial audio, Dolby Atmos. Which maybe we'll go mid and experiment with that too, but it's also weird you have like this push to talk for online play, which online play is obviously missing here. There's just no way to enable it as far as I can tell in the menu.
¿Es nueva aquí? Acostúmbrese a no hacer nada. Aunque beber y sudar ayuda a soportar el día.
You're not a local?
No, trabajo en un barco que golpeó unas rocas a las afueras de la ciudad. La tormenta llegó de la nada. Hundió el maldito barco.
So he got crashed here because of the storm. That's what he was saying there. Okay. It'll be very annoying if we start to have crashing to the desktop. If we don't have any crashing to the desktop in this sequence, I feel like we are probably fine.
¿Parte del equipo de excavación?
No, just passing through.
Bien, si necesita algo, el mercado está en el centro del pueblo. ¿Podría abastecerse antes de continuar?
Thank you.
Fue un placer.
So it's important for them to tell you that the market is there, the merchant's there, before we move on. Looks like there's a pig to hunt in that area.
Llevo 2 años tratando de reunir valor para invitarla a salir. Por fin lo hago y... ¿Quién es ese tipo?
And yeah, I don't want to belittle these native Spanish speaker actors by changing what they're saying to English, but probably would be better to have them speak in English. New base camp. So this is just considered a base camp like the fire is. And noticeably you can just pick up garbage off the ground. Alright, so this guy would speak Spanish normally. Let's do an experiment on that and turn off voiceover immersion. Let's see what that sounds like as far as the voice acting.
Hey, you want to know your way around Kuakyaku? Just ask me.
Are you the local tour guide?
I know where to go and who to steer you clear of.
I see.
Best fish is on the dock, obviously. Tacos are best at El Licor de Cerdo, but his beer is piss warm.
I'll watch out for that.
Oh, and Omar, stay away from that guy. You don't need his kind of trouble. Thinks he can just come to town and take what he wants.
Right. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for trouble.
Keep them both open.
Well, it sure seems like there's a lot of compromises here that we're going to have to run into. The truth is the immersion doesn't work well for me. The voice acting in English is better, and in all fairness, every other game does the exact same thing, so we're just maintaining what every movie in English and every video game has always done, which is the assumption that everybody speaks English for the benefit of the viewer. You still are going to get this secondary audio in the background for immersion. Interesting design of a building there. It does feel like because you're not in darkness and you don't have fireworks going off and you don't have the massive amount of people that were in that square, that this section really isn't pushing the ray tracing graphics anywhere as much as that first section was anyways.
I've been doing some research and I think we might be able to set ourselves up with a homemade refinery. It's going to be a lot of work though, and I can't do it alone. We'll need to build an oil tank, 1,000 liter capacity. The hull of the ship sunk in the river could be used for the tank. Any volunteers for a salvage mission? We'll need to set up a system to collect the crude. Who wants to be in charge of the bucket brigade? Once we get these things set up, we should be able to make diesel, kerosene, and petrol. Enough to fly the planes and eventually maybe even turn a profit.
Okay. So that seems like that might be a quest as a side mission, and it seems like we are going to just get side missions. There's still a lot of textures, just random stuff all over the place. But it kind of doesn't matter. It just, no matter...
Looks like this is Abby's family tree. Her family has lived in this village for hundreds of years, and it seems as though she's somehow related to most of the villagers.
Yeah. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it does seem like we're going to just get these side quest challenges and potentially even go in different directions to collect side quest items. There's probably not a lot of them. And I guess if we have little kids running around, then they've taken on an ambitious thing to have children running around. I can't pull my bow in the village anyway, so I couldn't shoot them or kill them, so they're perfectly safe. I guess that was Abby's area.
Always nice to see fresh faces in town. Good for the mind to know that our little corner of the world isn't forgotten. Also good for the wallet, if you'd maybe take a look at what we have for sale up at the general store.
These voice actors still have an appropriate seeming accent.
Omar, they've been working all night.
And? Isn't that what they're paid for? Get lost.
It's us.
Shit, no. Now fuck off and let me watch the damn game.
What is that?
Let's talk to this guy and
Sure would be great to get these thieves out of here.
see if we're just supposed to go beat this guy up.
Everything all right?
No, it's all terrible, as usual. These pillagers come to town, hire us to dig up our own relics, don't even pay us a living wage.
And then they run off with them and profit.
We are all desperate here. There's no work since Porvenir pulled out. We're sitting ducks.
And I imagine the storm hasn't helped matters.
What little we had is gone or underwater. I don't know what to do anymore.
I have some experience with these kinds of people. Maybe I can help.
I don't know what good it'll do. Did I catch your name?
Lara.
I'm Victor.
It's an interesting idea to
talk to Omar,
try to
executive
animate
lead tormentor in charge of theft and pillaging.
scars.
He's in there.
Thanks.
Be careful. He doesn't like to be challenged.
Now, video game logic here is going to have me just punching him. More calmer heads and conversation would imply you would think of something more complicated as a solution. I assume I'm just punching him and not just pulling out the bow and shooting him.
Piss off, you're spoiling the reception.
Omar?
Who are you? Looking for work? Well, you're out of luck. We have enough people. Marco's in charge of
Face seems
HR
a little
now
too
anyway.
pale for his body.
Yes, thank
there.
you. Do you know where he is?
Where else? The bar.
So now we're supposed to talk to Marco.
Sure would be great to get these thieves out of here.
I don't have enough space for that.
Where's the merchant? I think it makes more sense to go find the merchant first. Interesting. Green means ally, I guess. So I guess if they made kid models for these kids, that's probably where the Lara Croft child model also came from as a concept, if they were already doing that. Easy to kind of copy and paste the proportions. But yeah, I was saying it just doesn't matter how much stuff you throw in a game. It's only going to hit a certain level of uncanny valley. And it's just going to become too cluttered. Same is true for like movie sets. You don't set dress a movie set to have as much stuff as might be in a room. You set it up so it looks like a normal room but is actually fairly sparsely decorated. Same is true for a video game. Having a lot of distracting textures that lead to
local caverns rumored to be haunted.
Lead to you just looking at things that you can't interact with is pointless.
The bowels of the earth. No one who's entered the caves has ever returned. Mysterious sounds. Something between the booming of thunder and the howling of dogs. And a mysterious light glowing within.
The other thing certainly is you have games like Skyrim, as an example, that take the idea of having a bunch of junk, for lack of a better term, in the game, and then they make it so you can interact with all of that junk, and it still doesn't really work because then you're just wasting your time collecting 1,000 sweet rolls for your own amusement.
I don't know how they can gossip so cheerfully when we've lost so much.
I'm sorry.
Wait, you're not Mariela?
No, I'm just, so sorry to bother you.
I feel like it's a little weird that these ladies have hard headscarves, and this lady over here may be floating off the ground by the looks of it. Yep, she is totally floating off the ground. Physics glitches. Clearly, the voiceover immersion as an option should have been shown to you at the beginning, and you should have tested it and tried it out. And I didn't. So now the first section is going to be immersive, and the rest of the game is going to.
What are you talking about?
What am I?
Is just going to have the immersion turned off.
I saw that knife and gone and figured, never mind. You looking for anything in particular or just browsing?
What do you have?
What do I have?
The jars behind him don't look
one of the
very
greatest
well
archaeological sites
animated.
in South America. Well, it could be. It should be.
If it weren't for pillagers?
Exactly. Omar and his thugs are after money.
It's like they put the worst textured
items of
object behind him when they could have just not had the jars there at all. It would have been
show you what I have.
less distracting. Okay. So we have 4,200 gold pieces. And so it's really not a lot. But you could buy us guns. Or we can buy resources. Most of these resources, there's no reason why you would buy them. Bullets, we don't need to buy. Silent arrows, we don't need to buy. So then that leaves you just with a clothing item that's too expensive, another clothing item that's too expensive. This rifle ammo pouch is not that expensive, and so maybe there's an argument for that. Pistol suppressor, pistol ammo pouch. I guess the question is, can we just live with that stuff? Well, let's start with a sight.
A good deal for both of us.
And then let's go with ammo pouches. And then let's see what we can sell. These don't sell for too much, but I could see, let's say, sell 5
a good deal for both
of that. That's cloth. That was probably a bad one to sell. I think we could easily sell 10 hardwood. Medicine. I don't think we're going to run into a big problem there.
A good deal for both of us.
Perception plants. You might as well just sell it all.
Enjoy.
Focus plants. We'll sell those. I don't even think we really have the focus ability yet. We do have decent amount of hides.
A good deal for both of us.
Salvage.
Excellent choice.
Eagle feathers. I don't know what those are for. Condor feathers. I'm not sure what those are for. Venom. sells for a pretty high price, so we should probably extract that. This jaguar hide doesn't sell for much.
Excellent choice.
Okay.
A good deal for both of us.
So then that leaves us with just potentially buying weapons later and buying outfits later. But at the moment, I think you're in a pretty good position to
Pleasure doing business.
Just hope that that's good enough. Let's see. Going down that way, I think, moves the story forward. So we want to go back this way. I assume talking to these people.
I don't know how they can gossip so cheerfully when we've lost so much.
I'm sorry.
Wait, you're not Mariela.
No, I'm just...
And so if you want to cancel a dialogue conversation, you can't really do much.
Just arrived, have you? Lucky. You missed a hell of a storm.
I had a brush with it myself.
The wind played hell with the surrounding jungle. Knocked down trees, took out the power. A couple houses collapsed.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. Unless you control the weather.
Now the danger certainly is that whatever I just sold won't get replenished as fast as I think it will. But honestly, I think we're fine, and the pay-to-win outfits are just going to make it super easy.
You mean Abby? We've met. She's been very helpful.
Ah, that's our Abigail. Always ready to fix a generator or stop an argument. She's our de facto mayor, unofficial general store owner, half of the volunteer fire department. And trust me, you don't want to get into a fist fight with her.
I wonder how she gets all that on her business card. Okay, well, good luck with everything.
No voice acting, no lip flaps on the voice acting there. This too seems like this might be pointing you in different directions. But I really don't have a reason to go this far out of the path. We got some explosive red barrels, which makes me assume that there's something more this way, but kind of feels like it's just gonna end. So it is just kind of an open world section right next to your city section, so you can go and hunt and regain resources if you need to grind things. And I do think at some point we probably will probably need to do some grinding to upgrade our weapons, and this game probably will just turn into more of that. Larger capacity ammunition and resource satchels are now available for purchase at the merchant. We would need 3 skill points for that. I think that is probably what we need to save our points for. And I just question whether we're ever really going to have enough experience points to unlock everything, even if we are very grindy about things. Now that we have a handgun, we can take our standard AB-45 and replace it with the Silent Sting or the KHKAP, which Seems like that is way better of a handgun anyways, so pay to win seems to work. And we can turn our Vicar Mark II into an Umbrage 380. Also, I don't think we have any new outfits. I don't think we're probably ever really going to get full new outfits anyways. And we'll probably just craft new outfits as we go. And then pistol ammo holder, rifle ammo holders. Weirdly, the crafting, I feel like in the first game would have been done at this point, and now it's all been lowered into a system where the crafting is done while you're just like holding a trigger to craft things. Whether it's right bump or left bump, or right trigger or left trigger. Right trigger zooms. The good news is we have had no crashing here. So I think we are safe as far as all of that goes. I think there is a chance that there's just going to be a lot of people to talk to.
Always nice to see fresh faces in town. Good for the mind to know that our little corner of the world isn't forgotten.
We've already talked to that guy.
The jungle takes what it wants. Hard to get it to give up its secrets, but I found one, I think.
You have?
The village has many layers.
If you're going to talk to people seated,
find another,
the camera angle needs to be fairly specific.
Sometimes I wonder if it hasn't been here in one way or another since the beginning of time. You seem different than the others.
Which others?
All of them. Men looking for oil, gold, taking whatever they can.
So now we have a secret crypt that we've been pointed to, which maybe that means that she'll hand us secrets later on, or maybe that means that there's just more.
There was a beautiful temple there many years ago.
Like before you were born?
Oh, much older. Before your grandfather was even born.
I would be shocked at this point if there isn't time travel involved in this. We're obviously, well, my guess would be that we're going to have 2 copies of the entire world of the Peruvian jungle, at least. One in the past, one in the future, or the one in the present. But yeah, I do have a concern that I might need to search every single little house here. XP is being collected, and I guess I could jump in the water at any point. It's not gonna kill me. These ramshackle houses.
I'm sorry, do I know you? Sorry, I didn't realize this was a private residence.
Gosh, we lost a lot, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
I really didn't mean to.
I know you didn't. But if you'll excuse us, we have a lot of work to do.
There's definitely a possibility here that I've still yet to figure out the focus time, but I guess I can't shoot anything inside the village anyways. There's a possibility here we're going to go back in time, change things, and then everything will just be better, prevent a storm, at least.
There used to be a temple on the island over there, but all that's left is a couple crumbled walls.
And one stone pillar, it looks like.
That's more a statue than a pillar. Real intricate work. A college professor came out to study it a few years ago.
Did he tell you what he learned?
He said it didn't make any sense. Was pretty angry about it too. Said we tried to trick him or something.
So we have a monolith to check out. Fishes being butchered or mongered, whichever one you want to use.
This is my last one. Sold the rest to that commander fella. He was a little intense, but hey, he bought all my stock, didn't he? Well, except this one. Runs smooth, never breaks down. It's a real beaut, isn't it?
Well...
No, I'm serious. My wife here, she hasn't been the same since the accident. But the gentle hum, it helps her relax.
I'm glad.
These are some fairly weird looking fish.
I'm with you. That storm was unnatural.
Okay. So everything is probably telling me to go look at the monolith. The monolith may be the system at which time travel happens. So we may just gain an ability. Acquire 5 aquatic plants. Doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult to pull that challenge off. It's an interesting golden glow through the brown, murky, muddy waters. Forgot we can hold the trigger and swim faster. Apparently we collected a new kind of plant. And the effect of nearly drowning. Interesting that the game saves when I get up to the surface. It's a little too peaceful, frankly, in the water, though, and we just found some new collectible that, yeah, I'd have a hard time figuring it out. So yeah, we've had no crashing, and I'm happy for that. We have a monolith here. Let's see what this says.
Something nearby. Take a deep breath and find me right under another's nose.
Clue revealed. Potentially, I assume, pointing me towards that. No, actually, it's telling me to go search this area. It's not a very good menu system. How far are we now with the game? Seems like you can make as many saves as you want. And apparently we're 21% complete as far as resources and collectibles. Maybe that's because there's a whole second version of this that would have the same collectibles in the past. Or maybe the game is actually just kind of lying about us being 21% done with the collectibles. I assume that's what they're saying, is that we found 21% of the collectibles. Otherwise, we're 21% done with the narrative part of the story, which means the story is going to be fairly simplistic and short. anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me even further, there's a links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.